Hello everyone, and welcome back. Well, today I am very excited to talk to you about this camera right here. This is a 1958 Petri 2.8 rangefinder camera. For those of you who are not familiar with Petri brand, they came out with a whole series of rangefinders in the mid-1950s up through the mid-1960s. They made tweaks to the camera over the years, which makes it very confusing to try to figure out what year your camera's from, because they use the same names for all of the rangefinders through their years, even as they changed what the body and features looked like. So this particular model from 1958 has the Petri Green-O-Matic system here on the rangefinder, which consists of what they call green crown glass, which covers both the focus point secondary window for the rangefinder system, as well as it covers the bright line viewfinder system, which helps you frame where your image will be shooting. The main rangefinder viewfinder is clear, so when you're looking through the viewfinder, the green glass, the Green-O-Matic system, makes the focus point very bright, and it also makes the bright line frame very bright, so it's quite nice to shoot with. On top of that, the bright line frame line, which frames your image, is also parallax corrected, which was pretty advanced for this time. So as you change focus, that bright line frame changes to account for the parallax error that you normally would have in a rangefinder. Now, this particular camera I love so much, I actually ended up getting two. Not necessarily what I intended to do, and there's a story behind that. I'll explain that more in another video. But I just love shooting this camera. It's a true joy to shoot with, I can honestly say. Being a rangefinder from the 50s, it's got many of the standard characteristics of a rangefinder of that time. The controls for the camera are all on the lens barrel, starting with the shutter speed out front. This goes from B to 1/500th. It's a leaf shutter, of course. And then the aperture f2.8 for this particular lens. Petri also made this same camera in an f2 version, an f1.9 version, and an f1.8 version, with a variety of very minor body changes over the years. So again, kind of contributing to the confusion of trying to figure out when your camera is from if you have a Petri rangefinder. And then lastly, on the controls here, you've got, of course, the focus ring, which is controlled by this focus knob here. This particular version has the Carperu MXV shutter, which is a Compur style shutter. MXV meaning it has M-Sync for flash bulbs, X-Sync for electronic flash, and then the V indicates it also has a self-timer, as opposed to the MX shutter, which this camera was also produced with an MX shutter. There's one other slight difference, which is the MXV shutter has a 1/500th top speed. The MX shutter has a 1/300th top speed. So moving on to the rest of the controls on the top of the camera, of course we've got the standard single stroke, film wind, film advance. It's got the film counter on top there, which you manually reset when you load your film. Shutter release button, of course. It's got a small film reminder dial, cold shoe for mounting accessories, or the flash, which then plugs into the flash PC socket down here. And then lastly, of course, the film rewind. And again, such a solid camera, such a fun camera to use. Feels great in the hand. One thing you'll note, the shutter button is smooth. It does not have the standard screw mount for a cable release, but you can remove the outer surround of the shutter button right here by unscrewing that. And then once you've done that, the exposed threads are the same size as a Leica style cable release or Yashica style. So if you have a Leica or Yashica external thread cable release, you can use that on your Petri. Now, the film I'm going to be using with this camera is this Fomapan 400. I really like Fomapan generally. I have not shot 400 before, and the reason I'm choosing 400 right now is just because it's now November, it's fall, coming into winter, and here in the Seattle area, days get pretty short, the sun is pretty low on the horizon, so we have to make do with what we have in terms of light, and I think the 400 speed will really help me in that regard. But really looking forward to taking pictures with this camera and sharing with you all the results that I get. So as I mentioned, the camera does not have an interchangeable lens. It has a fixed lens with a fixed focal length. So that is one of the limitations of this camera and other rangefinders like it. However, Petri, like many other camera manufacturers of that time at least, also produced this little auxiliary lens set specifically for this camera. And they produced this set, which includes both a wide angle and a telephoto attachment which you attach to the front of the lens. They produced this type of set for every version of this camera. So this particular set that I own is specific to the f2.8 lens, and also includes this auxiliary viewfinder. And this viewfinder provides you with the means of understanding what the view of the camera will be with the attachment. So it looks just like this, similar to other viewfinder attachments that you'll find for other rangefinder cameras of that era. And then the viewfinder, of course, slides right into the cold shoe accessory mount, and then you basically take the auxiliary lens that you want to use. In this case, I'm going to be putting on the wide angle attachment. That just screws directly to the front of the lens and changes the effective focal length of the lens. Not a tremendous increase in width, but significant if you're wanting a little bit more to show up in your picture. Now, the way these work is on the actual attachment itself, there's a conversion scale. So you first focus with the traditional focusing, and then once you've achieved focus through the rangefinder, you look at the scale that's shown on the lens. I've measured at 5 feet, and it says, okay, now change the focus ring to measure at 8 feet. And then you're ready to shoot for that particular distance. And then when you look through the viewfinder, you'll see two different bright frames, one for the telephoto converter and one for the wide angle converter. And that shows you the field of view that the conversion lens you have on the camera will show. So quite clever. It is a little bit of a hassle, so it's not something that you're going to be using just for individual photos. You'll probably want to, if you're going to use this, you're going to use it for a number of photos in a row. Now, obviously, an attachment lens does not provide the same quality of imaging as an actual interchangeable lens. But these lenses, these auxiliary lenses, are surprisingly sharp, at least in the center. Where they really suffer, though, is they both have pretty significant vignetting around the perimeter of the image. So really, you wouldn't want to use them for a lot of really important work, but they do work quite well for just casual shooting. Okay, now I do want to talk a little bit about how much you might pay for an outfit like this. These cameras are not frequently collected, and so therefore the prices are not very high. I was lucky to find a camera set with the original box, owner's manual, and leather case, and then bought the auxiliary lens set separately. These cameras typically sell for around $25 to $50 for the camera, and then the lens sets sell for around another $10 to $20. So altogether, it's a relatively inexpensive setup. Got 400 speed black and white film loaded up here, and which should be good. As you can see, there's a lot of texture in this old pier and the old warehouse that's here at the pier. So black and white film works really well for enhancing texture, especially a faster black and white film, which is going to get a little more grain and show a little more texture, so this should be fine. Now, of course, there's no light meter in this camera, so I'm doing some light metering here. First with my phone,